Thank you for downloading this Brum Radio podcast. For more podcasts, visit brumradio.com.
And now, for your listening pleasure, it's the Brum Picture Show, brought to you by Brum Radio.
Hello, and welcome to this, the first ever broadcast of the Brum Picture Show, a new weekly film show covering local, independent and world cinema, right here on Brum Radio. Alongside film reviews, news and tunes, every week we'll be discussing a different film-related topic and tackling tough cinematic questions. These might be vague questions, such as, what is a film? Or more specific questions, such as, are Martin Scorsese's films cinema? Tarkovsky, genius or tedious? And what is the greatest film ever made? And why is it The Muppet Christmas Carol? This week's topic is the oeuvre of Wes Anderson. But before we get on to that, let's give you a little bit of background on who on earth we are and how we've been given this prestigious platform on which we may waffle on about films to you and why we've chosen this subject. So this show is brought to you by Screen B14, which is a Birmingham-based community cinema collective which has been putting on film screenings and events in the Moseley and Kings Heath area for the last 5 years thereabouts. The members of Screen B14 range from award-winning filmmakers and soundtrack composers to armchair critics, and this show will feature various members of said collective discussing everything film for your entertainment or disdain. So my name is Paul Vernon. My role in Screen B14 is that I move the chairs around for our screenings, and I also edit and co-produce this very show. I love films, and I'm now very grateful to have a platform on which to legitimately talk about them. I also made a short film many, many years ago when I was 18 called No Openment, and as it's got an unsearchable title, it's had about 10 views on YouTube for the past 15 years. But now I've mentioned it, maybe it will go viral. So check that out. So let's see who's joining us today on the show.
Well, I'm definitely going to check out your short film, Paul. I can't wait. My name's Nadine. I am the head programmer for Screen B14. So I'm the reason that we're showing Asteroid City as our next screening on the 16th of November at the Cuban Embassy. And we thought to tie in with that screening, it'd be lovely to have a little chat about Wes Anderson. But I am a writer, I'm a director, I have 3 films currently doing the festival circuit, but I love film. Like, my life is just dedicated to film, so that's why I'm here.
That's nice. Who else do we have?
Well, hello, I'm Rory. I'm officially the General Secretary of Screen B14, although I'm not entirely sure what that encompasses. I'm more just a general handyman. But other than that, I'm a filmmaker as well. I do sci-fi films, one about a farmer who's looking for aliens. We did that. And another one about a palliative care robot, which is a lot more sad. But yes, I also do a bit of stand-up as well in the local area. But thank you, for having me as well. So looking forward to it.
You're very welcome, Rory. Welcome, guys, to the show. Coming up in the show, we'll have an extended discussion of Wes Anderson and his oeuvre. We'll also have some film reviews and local events listings. But we're going to start with a brief little roundup of some of the film news that we have perused. So, who's going to go first with that? Anything catch your eye?
I just wanted to mention briefly that, unfortunately, not too long ago, Matthew Perry passed away. And I was just, like everybody of my generation, just absolutely obsessed with Friends. I had Friends pencil case, I had Friends diary, I had Friends poster on my wall. But he wasn't just a TV star, he starred in films as well, such as 17 Again and Fools Rush In, and he even did a film with Bruce Willis, The Whole 10 Yards. And that's the reason that Bruce Willis ended up in Friends, because he lost a bet with Matthew Perry on that film and he wasn't paid for his cameo in Friends. So a little bit of trivia for you there. But I was just a massive fan. And, if you were a sarcastic teenager growing up in the late 90s, early noughties, you were the self-described Chandler of your friend group and you were just obsessed with him. And he was a comic genius, and I just think it's really sad that he won't be around anymore. So I just wanted to just say a little bit of acknowledgement of, how much of a fan I was, and millions of people across the world as well will be missing him.
Yeah, it is truly a great and very sad loss. As you say, like I can't remember, I saw a quote somewhere that just said that he kind of changed the way that America spoke. That sarcasm, his delivery, his line readings are just so very him and so influential on the world. Really, it's like when you think of the number of countries that Friends has been incredibly popular in. Like he's just he was a gargantuan figure in comedy.
I don't think it's ever been off the air. I think it's just, turn on the telly somewhere in the world, there'll be an episode of Friends playing. And yeah, like you said, that he had a very specific kind of intonation, a very specific way of talking that he'd developed with his friends, actually, when he was growing up, including Shannon Doherty and Hank Azaria, who were mates of his. And they had this way of talking, that kind of could I be anymore, Chandler Bing kind of emphasis on certain words. So, yeah.
He was definitely the best friend in Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I found
sure.
Whenever I was in my friendship group, they would always go, which friends were you? And I'd always get picked as Ross. And I'd always be incredibly disappointed by that because, everyone wanted to be Chandler. No one wanted to be Ross.
No one wanted
definitely.
to be Ross.
So, yeah, no, brilliant guy.
I know, it's a great loss, and it's been very, very heartwarming to see how much how much of a positive write-ups of his life have been, like the newspaper articles, because let's face it, the press have been quite cruel to Matthew Perry in the past. But yeah, it's really nice to see that his legacy is just going to be one of revered and loved character. So,
and he did say, before anyone talks about Friends, which I've done, of course, he wanted people to know him as somebody who helped others with their sobriety. He was well documented drug and alcohol addict, had been to rehab many times, but had helped many, many people in their journey to sobriety. And that was something he was really proud of, and that was something that he wanted people to remember him for.
Yeah, so rest in peace, Matthew Perry. Is there anything else in the news catch your eye?
Yeah, something a little more light-hearted to cheer us up after that. Horror legend John Carpenter just wants to play video games and watch basketball.
Yeah.
And eat popsicles. John Carpenter did a recent interview with Insider, and they asked him about, being an absolute horror master. And his response was, "That's nice. Sorry, I'm eating a popsicle. Look, I'm not a master of anything. I just want to play video games and watch basketball. That's all I care about doing. I don't want to bother anybody." And what can you say to that, really? Fair play. When you've made some of the greatest horror films of all time, like Halloween and The Thing, which we showed at Screen B14.
Sold out
screening.
Yeah.
And R.J. McCready himself attended. Well, maybe not R.J. McCready, but sort of bargain basement version.
Well, I wouldn't say bargain base. I would say, just for the listeners who weren't in the screening, I dressed up as R.J. McCready. You can't see what I look like, but I am a
dead ringer,
a white man with long hair
and a beard.
and a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a quick tip: if you ever want to have a flamethrower as a sort of costume, what you do is you get your sort of portable Hoover, put it in your backpack, get the nozzle, and then put flames on it. And
not actual flames.
No, not
what were they
actual
made
flames.
out of?
They
look like socks or something.
It was paper. That was the
paper.
secret. That's the secret. But yes, there you go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Nice.
Is he not making any more films now?
He's working on a series at the moment, but he's not too bothered about that either, to be honest. He said basically, if you like it, great. If you don't, you can F off, basically. He did say that the thing that matters in a horror movie most of all is a great story. He says, I don't care how many final girls or jump scares or anything else. That's all secondary. That's all beside the point. Good story is what horror is all about. And I wish there were more horror directors that thought that way, because, I do love horror myself. But you have to wade through a lot of rubbish to get to, The Thing or a Halloween.
That is very true indeed. Well, yeah, John Carpenter's a dude, which is the takeaway from that story, I suppose.
Newsflash.
Newsflash. I just love how there's like shots in Halloween where you can just see his cigarette smoke appearing like in front of the camera because he's just sitting there behind the camera, just chain smoking. Not that smoking's good for you guys. Don't do it. But
No, don't do
in the 70s it was all right. It wasn't. It was never right. I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess that is some news. Very quick things that caught my eye. I saw a new Marvel poster, and it was just a load of cats.
Okay.
What's that about?
Did it excite you?
Yeah, I guess cats excite me.
What
Is it
What
a
was it
musical?
for?
It was the Marvels, just a load of cats.
Oh.
Is it starring James Corden?
I hope not.
Judi
And
Dench.
Taylor Swift with a CGI. I won't finish that sentence.
Moving
but yeah.
swiftly on.
Yeah, so Marvel film. It's got cats, if you like cats. And Marvel,
I mean, who doesn't love cats? I
That's
think.
it. And also, so in general, obviously, of course, movie news has been a little bit unusual for the past few months because of the various strikes, and Hollywood is just basically eating itself. So it does mean that stories like John Carpenter liking popsicles and things like that kind of taking more of a prominence in the headlines than they usually would. And a similar example of this is a headline that I saw on EmpireOnline.com from their exclusive interview with Werner Herzog, and apparently he doesn't dream. So
He doesn't?
He doesn't dream. That's what he says. He says, the strange thing is that I do not dream. And he's been talking about his new memoir, Every Man for Himself and God Against All, which I can't wait to hear the audiobook because he's doing it himself. And he says, I feel the absence of dreams like a void in the morning. Maybe this void is something I'm filling with poetry or films or images or dialogue or sometimes maybe wild things that I'm acting. But I only dream once or twice a year, and if it is a dream, then it's usually very banal. I dreamt I had a sandwich for lunch, which is just so wonderfully Werner Herzog. And it kind of made me think that Werner Herzog, when you think about it, is the opposite of David Lynch. Because
I was about to say.
Yeah, because everything is a dream for David Lynch. A beautiful dream. But for Werner Herzog, it's a nightmare. And I'd really love to see those two hanging out and their conflicting perspectives on the world.
I would love to see you do each of them with the different accents, battling it out. That looks like a one-man show to me.
It was like they were here. I
think
thought Werner Herzog was here.
I think this penguin is depressed. No, Werner, it's a penguin in trouble, exploring the new part of
The
town.
more I learn about you, the gifts you offer. So impressive.
I just moved the chairs around.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so that was what caught my eye this week. So we should probably move on.
I've
okay.
got one
Oh.
piece of news that kind of ties in with our theme, actually. Michael Cera and Wes Anderson are going to be teaming up on a new film. I don't know much about it, but I just think that sounds fantastic. It's kind of one of those casting decisions where you're like, how come this didn't happen sooner? I just think that's just perfect. I think Michael Cera just seems to fit in the Wes Anderson verse just perfectly. And I can't wait. I loved Michael Cera in Arrested Development and Scott Pilgrim and all his other projects. I just think he's brilliant as Alan in Barbie, of course. Lest we not forget that. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm already buying my ticket. I can't wait.
Absolutely. And of course, my favourite role of Michael Cera's is his appearance in Twin Peaks: The Return as Wally Brando. Is that his name? He plays Deputy Andy's and and Lucy's son, and he just does this most absurd performance, dressed all in leathers.
Apparently, he met David Lynch at some kind of like transcendental.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Meditation meet up, and he was like, "Yeah, I've got a part for you," and that's how that came about.
That makes sense. That reminds me actually very quickly of video that recently resurfaced of David Lynch on stage with Russell Brand, because obviously they're both in the transcendental meditation world, and David Lynch just shuts him down completely. Like the notion of Russell Brand working with David Lynch is brought up. And it's like, do you think we'll ever work together? And David Lynch just goes, no.
That was a good call.
And
Good.
and Russell Brand looks
Mortified.
visibly crushed. Anyway, we should probably move on from the news. So coming up, we will have a lengthy discussion of Wes Anderson and, of course, film reviews and local events. But before that, let's introduce our main feature for today, the subject of Wes Anderson's work. So we've chosen this subject because Screen B14 will be putting on a screening of the film at the Cuban Embassy in Moseley on November the 16th. Big thank you to those guys for hosting us. So if you're in the area then, make sure you do pop on down to that.
I just want to interject. Buy your tickets in advance, people. Our last screening sold out and we had to turn people away.
Exactly.
And I have a sneaking suspicion this will be a sellout too. So if you love Wes Anderson, if you didn't catch Asteroid City while it was on at the cinemas, don't leave it to the last minute. Get your tickets now.
I was also the one who turned people down. And it was a horrible experience, and it reminded me, I imagine, as a bouncer for the Taylor Swift concert. It was that same experience, so you got to get them now.
Yes, exactly
so
the same.
don't break Rory's heart. He
Can't
doesn't
do it
want to
to too
turn
many
people
people.
away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Buy your tickets now.
Buy your ticket. And even if you don't live in Birmingham, you live abroad, you should
Buy a plane ticket.
Buy
Buy
a
a
plane
ticket
ticket
anyway.
Come over and come and sit and watch a film in a pub with
Or
some Brummies.
or just pay for the ticket and see it as a donation.
Yeah, exactly. So, Nadine, tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, why we chose Asteroid City, why we're just talking about Wes in general, and what's your film?
I mean, choosing Asteroid City was a bit of a no-brainer for us. Our focus is independent cinema, British films, world cinema, films that aren't the big blockbuster films that are hanging around for months on end, films that you may have heard of, that you probably planned to go and see, like me, and didn't get round to, and then 2 weeks later they're not at the cinema anymore. But don't worry, we're showing them for a fraction of the cost of your local multiplex, and you can order drinks and food to your seat, which you don't get at your local multiplex. I nearly said the name of one then. I thought, I don't want to get sued. So, let's keep it generic. But yeah, I mean, we had requests for Asteroid City. I mean, Wes Anderson is just so well loved. He's got such a well-defined aesthetic. His films are always so well crafted, just beautiful visually, and funny and poignant at times as well. So the film I've chosen to talk about is... there's a couple I could have chosen. I mean, I do love Rushmore. Max Fisher is my spirit animal, and I will be dressing as him for the Asteroid City screening. Do feel free to come in your own Wes Anderson-inspired costumes. We do encourage the fancy dress at our screenings. Might even be a prize in it for you. But yeah, I won't be talking about Rushmore. As much as I love that film, I do think it's got a few issues with pacing. And I do think, for my money, his best film is The Royal Tenenbaums. I think his collaborations with Owen Wilson are some of his most heartfelt. I think his films are always beautifully crafted. They're always visually stunning. Great set design, great costumes, great, visual composition, great colouring, everything. Visually, it's always a feast. But I think the films that I connect with most emotionally are those that that were co-written by Owen Wilson. And I think there is a depth to The Royal Tenenbaums. And if you haven't watched it, if you've only seen from, Grand Budapest Hotel onwards, you need to go back. You need to go into the deep cuts for this one. An amazing cast. I mean... Gene Hackman, Danny Glover, Angelica Houston, the Wilson brothers, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bill Murray, of course. Wouldn't be a Wes Anderson film without him. So just Ben Stiller. Like there's so many. It's just everyone you've ever heard of is in that film. Just every role is perfectly cast, and it's a story that has real sad moments, real kind of, deep, meaningful moments. And even though the films themselves are often very light-hearted and humorous, there are these kind of darker points in them. And I think that's coming from real lived experience.
Rory, what Wes film are you going to talk about?
Yeah, so I chose the Grand Budapest Hotel. Well, this might be, I don't know if this is controversial, it depends who's listening, but I'm not the biggest fan of Wes Anderson. There you go. I find them a little bit impenetrable to some degree, I think. It's emotionally, I struggle to sort of get into the films emotionally because I think it's of his aesthetic style. But saying that, I think the Grand Budapest is my favourite one because it's the funniest one. And that's because of Ralph Fiennes, who is such an amazing actor. But he's such an amazing comic actor as well. When you look at his previous roles, like in Bruges, Hail Caesar as well, he was brilliant in that. And he's kind of not like, like a Will Ferrell. So when you look at Anchorman, you're seeing Will Ferrell and the moustache. But because he's so brilliant, as an actor, he embodies the character so well. And it just means that it could just be a gesture. It could be like a little thing with the eyebrow, or it could be something bigger. But yeah, it's just a brilliant central performance. And I really love the humour in that film. He has a line in it. Someone really insults him in the sort of funeral. Someone really insults him and he just looks at him dead in the pan and just goes, how is that supposed to make me feel? And it's so funny to me, although it probably doesn't come across like that because I'm not Ralph Fiennes.
Well, I have to say, I actually agree with all those things you just said about Wes Anderson films, and that's why I've gone for a deeper cut, because I do find, as you do, I don't necessarily have that emotional connection with his later films, and I do feel Grand Budapest Hotel is probably the first film of his that a lot of people have seen. It was one of his first big successful films that sort of rocketed him into the mainstream. So yeah, I actually don't think it's massively controversial. As said, his films are beautifully crafted. We all know that Wes Anderson aesthetic. Everybody on the internet is trying to recreate it, accidentally Wes Anderson. But I agree, and that's why I went for one of his collaborations with Owen Wilson, because I really think Owen Wilson brought a lot of heart to Wes Anderson's playful, kind of perfect, crafted aesthetic. And I do think if you are a fan of Wes Anderson films, or even if you're a casual viewer, and you haven't seen some of those earlier films, not necessarily Bottle Rocket, but I would say go back to Rushmore, go back to the Royal Tenenbaums, go back to some of those earlier films. The aesthetic is there, but there's more. There's a bit more depth there, I think, and I think often it feels like Wes Anderson is an aesthetic looking for a story.
I was listening to, I can't remember if it was a review or something, but they said that is often what people go in for. When they first look at Wes Anderson, they're kind of blown away just by his aesthetic, and how sort of, I guess, accurate it is in every way in the details. But then what you should do is re-watch it again, which is something I just can't quite muster. I haven't watched his films twice really, except the Grand Budapest Hotel, and then once you know what happens in the film, and what happens to the characters, kind of the themes of isolation, sort of come out a lot more in the second viewing. Because it is quite a sad film, I think, the Grand Budapest. There is something sort of isolating about the characters, which is actually quite hard to see, behind all the big bright colours and stuff, and the funny costumes and the moustaches. So yeah, I think that is interesting, and perhaps they require second viewing. Would be defending Anderson, but I'm not the biggest fan.
Well, you don't have to be. I think let's open up the debate. What do you think, listeners? Is Wes Anderson an aesthetic trying to find a story, or do his films have depth? Should we look a little deeper before we write Wes Anderson off? What is our email address, and how can they contact us?
pictureshow@brumradio.com. Nadine.
Paul, what's your favourite? What's your favourite Wes Anderson film?
Or what's your pick? It might not be his favourite. What did you pick?
Are you a Wes Anderson head?
Well, it's funny you should say that. It's quite interesting that we've chosen Wes Anderson as our subject for the first show, because I don't really love him either. The thing is, I really like Wes Anderson films, but I don't love any of them. And as kind of Rory was saying, there's always something about them that leaves me a little bit cold. And I think it partly is that kind of meticulous construction of it all. It makes it all feel quite clinical. Because obviously his films are all like, because he makes animatics for all of his films. Like his films are so thoroughly storyboarded and regimented that you feel that there's obviously no improvising going on in that set, because it's just like, right, this is the shot we're getting, and it kind of leaves a bit of a kind of stilted feel to a lot of it, and I never really emotionally engage with a lot of his stuff. And also his stuff tends to provoke more of a wry smile, like a twitch at the corner of the mouth, rather than actual laughs, which is, with maybe the exception of Asteroid City for me, because I did find myself laughing out loud quite a lot in that film. But in general, you just kind of just go,
You're like, oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, it's like
nicely done.
It's like, yes, I appreciate that. Yeah, there are more films to be appreciated than enjoyed a lot of the time. I don't know, but as you say, they're always gorgeously designed and constructed. But yeah, I just come away, feeling like, I've just watched a Wes Anderson film, and I know that's become quite a lazy criticism. It's like everyone says that Wes Anderson is just becoming a parody of himself, and like all the Wes Anderson films are just more Wes Anderson by the minute. But I think that's quite a reductive statement. But he is one of the only directors that I can think of that you just know it's a Wes Anderson film when you watch it. Like even Scorsese or whatever, he has tonal shifts. Even Tarantino messes with tone a little bit. Like it's not always like full on Tarantino, but Wes Anderson it's always Wes Anderson, isn't it? It's I can't think of many artists, like many directors like that.
I would love a moment. I'd love a moment in the future where someone goes, "Oh, did you know that was directed by Wes Anderson?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what?
Yeah, like I'd love him to.
It wasn't symmetrical.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love him to just do a weird horror film or something like that. But he's a great artist, and he just it's cool that he keeps doing what he's doing. And again, he is one of the few directors who can get a film promoted just by his name. Really, there's not many directors like that. There's your Nolans and your Tarantinos and Scorsese's, but he is like, he's one of the only household name directors that people will go see the new Wes Anderson film. And he also obviously just gets these incredibly powerful casts.
It's interesting you say that. I've got a feeling for film aficionados, people will go out to see the new Wes Anderson film, but I think for the general population, that isn't the case.
I disagree.
Do you?
Well, that's the thing. That's the tricky thing, isn't it? It's because we're all just living in our little film bubbles, and we think that everyone knows everything. But actually, we recorded a pilot show for this radio show, and I played it for my friends, some of my friends, and they just said, I only knew one of those films that you spoke about. So if you think we're being too niche, listeners of Brum Radio, then do let us know. Email us in. And if you're just like, who's Wes Anderson?
So niche.
Yeah, why did you spend half an hour talking about Wes Anderson?
Why
who's that
guy?
guy?
About the latest Marvel films. I'm sorry,
we
listeners.
did.
If you've not heard of Wes Anderson,
get out.
we don't want your kindness.
Radios have been turning off as we speak. But sometimes I find as well, when coming out of a Wes Anderson film, I get the feeling of inadequacy.
That's the real problem.
I just always have a feeling of inadequacy. It doesn't matter what film I watch.
Emperor's New Clothes. You just don't get it, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a bit of coming out like, but so many clever people love this, and I love looking at it, but I just it's just.
I think
not
you're
connecting.
distracted by the visuals, and I think I agree that some of his late period films are not that I don't connect with emotionally. But please do go back. Do go back to those earlier films. Do go back to those Owen Wilson collaborations. because I think you're missing a trick. And the aesthetic is still there, but not in that heightened way. I think Grand Budapest Hotel really was when he sort of went, for want of a better words, kind of over the top with that.
But that's quite interesting, actually. So you think then that his films have got progressively worse?
Not necessarily progressively worse, but they've become progressively more stylized, and I think perhaps less sort of dramatic, less sort of heartfelt. And I think if you are a person who's like, oh, I don't care for Wes Anderson, especially if you're someone who is a bit dazzled, as Rory is, by the aesthetic, you can't see past that. Those earlier films, his sense of style is still there. His meticulous sense of style is still there, but it's not. It's a much more real world. Go watch Rushmore. Everything in Rushmore feels like it could exist in the real world. It's just very symmetrical. Do you know what I mean?
I did watch Rushmore. Well, no, I started watching Rushmore, but I was about 13, and I thought it was,
Go back.
Yeah, and I didn't get it then, but that was due to being 13 years old.
I think so.
Hopefully I've changed.
Jason Schwartzman is just perfect in that film. I just think, he's so brilliantly cast. And yes, he's a Nepo baby. We've got to give him that. He's part of the Coppola family. His mother was in the Godfather films. But he's just brilliant. I can't believe he's a 17-year-old in that film. He's just so mature, so funny, just so brilliant, and in every Wes Anderson film. So do give it another chance. Do go back to Rushmore. Do go back to Royal Tenenbaums. I don't know about Steve Zissou. That's not my cup of tea, but
yeah, I think my pick, because I think it is the most emotionally resonant of his films, would be Moonrise Kingdom from 2012, which is definitely, I think it's his most heartwarming and like genuinely touching. Like, it's still overly stylized, and that's definitely we're starting to get the full-on symmetrical stuff and
but it's
all
lovely.
that
business. It's in a very gentle way. It's not beating you over the head with it.
Yeah. It's just a really nice film. So it's a coming of age story set in the 60s about a young boy escaping a scout camp to meet his young love interest, and it turns into a road movie where they're being pursued by authority figures, and it's just got the classic Wes Anderson cast, like incredible cast, which he always manages to do. And I think the reason he manages to get these amazing casts is, for the most part, they only have to turn up for a day or two, and like especially what was Asteroid City, like the poster for that is just ridiculous. It's just like, look at all these humans that you know.
An easy paycheck.
Exactly, come and see this.
Actually, you say easy paycheck. Edward Norton complains. He says he doesn't get paid very much at all in Wes Anderson films.
Poor Edward.
Poor
A
boy.
moment of silence for Edward Norton's financial problems.
He's always moaning at Edward Norton, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Edward Norton, if you're listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio. But yeah, so it's got Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, even Bruce Willis. And of course the Anderson staples with Bill Murray and Jason Schwartzman. But yeah, it's and the main thing is that the child leads in it's a testament to their performances that I enjoyed the film, like, because I hate children in films. Apologies to any children listening, but you're annoying and confusing, go away. But the fact that these child actors, managed to make me feel something. It was just, it's just a really lovely film. And of course, I'm a big fan of Fantastic Mr. Fox, because, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a little bit of my childhood. Although my parents hate it for some reason. I think they find it quite disturbing.
I don't like it either.
No, really?
We've got all the different angles on Wes Anderson today. I do him doing children's films just is a perfect match, though, because he does have a very storybook aesthetic. His look is almost like something out of a children's novel.
Yeah.
When did you watch that film? Were you a child?
Well, I guess not long after it came out. I suppose I wasn't a child when it came out. When did it come out?
But the book, I presume, Roald Dahl's
the book,
original book
read the book, and I remember going to
show.
see a stage performance of it at the old Rep. I remember seeing the Twits as well. With
I
my
saw the
parents.
Twits.
Oh yeah.
I saw it at the Mac.
The old Rep, I think it was.
Okay.
So I would have been like 8 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
it might have been the same touring company.
Yeah.
Because it is a disturbing story.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all of Roald Dahl's films, with books, are kind of disturbing.
Yeah, they're really dark, and it's quite amazing.
So I think your parents should reevaluate that critique.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
I didn't mean to. I hope they're not listening.
I think, shouldn't that mean they're in the right, though? Because they think it's disturbing, don't they?
But they think that's a reason why it's bad.
Yeah, but they didn't think
you
like
think it's a good adaptation, therefore?
An accurate adaptation.
Yeah.
potentially.
Well, my parents are funny ones because, like, my dad in particular, he's got a real thing where he's just quite disturbed by talking animals. Babe Pig in the City, he
He should avoid
traumatised.
all
Just not
children's
natural.
films, I think.
Exactly.
Not natural.
That's just not right. He was
Foxes don't talk.
exactly. But for some reason, they didn't mind the original stories, but there was something about Wes Anderson's adaptation that freaked them out.
How does your dad find Finding Nemo? Because that's not.
I think that's all right. I think
'Cause
it's
there's a
when it's
fish.
kind of not that they're live action in
I
Fantastic
think
Mr.
there's
Fox.
something about the fur, because they're not plasticine, they're furry, and it is creepy.
Right, and
it's a bit
it
uncanny.
looks like their fur's
Oh, I
kind of
see.
I don't
crawling.
like. I don't like it. I agree with your dad.
But he's fine with animations. It's just that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That particular
Yeah.
style.
So I guess it's stop motion is a kind of animation, but yeah, it's more the kind of live actiony stuff.
Live action, yeah.
Like the talking orangutan in Babe Pig in the City. That's what really sent him over. I don't think he ever quite recovered, to be honest. But yeah, so they are really a perfect pairing. But yeah, so it's got this fourth wall breaking theatrical thing, and it reminded me a little bit of the Lars von Trier film Dogville, in that it's there's certain bits where they don't use props. They're referring to props, like he's referring to the poison oats that the rat catcher had. So basically Rafe Fiennes is this rat catcher who turns up to this village, and they're like, we got to kill our rats, and then he turns up with some poison oats. That's his plan. But then when he's showing you the oats, he's just got his hands out empty, and then there's this whole sequence where he's talking about using a ferret to dispose of a rat, and you don't see that happening. He's just standing there.
Do you think that could be because of they didn't have enough budget for the props?
I think it's a very intentional theatrical.
It's not because they're running out of money.
It is.
I think part of it is, but we do see the rat animated.
Exactly.
So
That's what
seems
confused
like a
me.
choice
Yeah,
to me.
but yeah, I think that was another thing, as what Rory was saying earlier. Is am I just not clever enough? Do I not understand why you're using a CGI rat in this bit, but you're not using a CGI rat and a ferret in the other bit?
I think it was an animated rat. I just want to put that in. I don't think
it looks a bit CGI to me. It didn't look like proper.
I can't imagine Wes Anderson using CGI. It's
But it
not
looks.
old school
It looks
enough
like
for
a
him.
computer rat. I don't know.
I don't know.
It looks like CGI trying
I think
to be.
it's claymation enhanced with CGI, perhaps. If
Okay.
you know, listeners, do let us know. Is the rat in the rat catcher CGI or animated? You need to settle this argument right now.
The
for
hot
us.
debates, guys.
And if you're Wes Anderson, please let us know.
But I do think so many of his films have that theatrical element, even going back all the way to Rushmore and the play within the film. We talk a lot about his literary influences and that kind of, novel type framing device that he uses, but he also seems to be enamoured with theatre and theatricality, and I think that's something that comes across in all these kind of Netflix Roald Dahl adaptations. I'd recommend The Swan. That was my favourite. And Henry Sugar, the longest one, is probably one of the better ones. Didn't care so much for Ratcatcher or Poison. But I think Rupert Friend, weirdly as well, fits very neatly into the Wes Anderson verse. I don't know why, he just seems to get it. I think some actors just click and it's like, yeah, of course. And then other actors, you think they were, but they just, I don't know. There's something about your Richard Ayoade's, your Jason Schwartzman's, your Rupert Friends even, that just kind of fit very neatly into that world.
I agree. So, well, I guess we should probably begin to wrap things up. But I guess in conclusion, Wes Anderson's all right, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Very enthusiastic. Come and
yeah.
see. You said you liked Asteroid City. You said
No,
you were
I did.
laughing
No,
out
no, no.
loud.
I really did.
Don't come on. Let's not put people.
I think
let's not
you
put
said
people up.
something which is great, which is probably what I do believe, is that they are great films. They'll never be my favourite films.
Yeah, no, exactly. But, we love you, Wes, despite everything we've just said.
Slander.
I think you just need to go back and rewatch some of those films.
Yeah, I mean, I will.
You're probably right.
Coming up now is the review section, which isn't going to be incredibly extensive because we've got full-time jobs. We don't have the time to go and see every single film like these proper film journalists do. So this is just what we've managed to get out and see. So, but the main film event, I suppose, of the season, if not the year, is the new Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon.
No spoilers. I haven't seen it yet. Unfortunately, I was going to go and see this on my birthday, and I've got a horrible ear infection, and I don't want to risk my eardrum, even for Martin Scorsese. So I'm putting it off. But if you can discuss the film without spoilers, I'd appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
They all die. Like everyone dies.
That better not be
No,
true.
it's fine.
Don't put that in.
No, it's not true. No, it's
Yeah.
That definitely doesn't happen. So the film, it's an amazing film. It is based on a book, and it's such an interesting period of history. But it's basically about the Osage Nation, which are Native Americans, set in the 1920s. And they were sort of chucked off into this sort of reservation in Oklahoma, and they landed on like this massive oil reserve, and then became the richest community, I think in America, really, per capita, which is just a crazy thing in that your perceptions of American history are that, Native Americans, the atrocities and all that sort of thing. But then they were the richest, group because of this.
I think maybe is the operative word.
Yeah. And what happened then is it meant that it creates this really interesting situation between the Native Americans and then the white people who are sort of within that community too. So the way that these white people would gain power and access to money would be marrying through this community. And then also, I hate to spoil this, Nadine, through the systematic real murder and planned murder of these people as well. It's just an incredibly fascinating period of history. And it is a film that reflects that incredibly. And it's an amazing film. It's also a 206-minute film, which is kind of taken over really as the debate that surrounds it. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing how good this film is, considering how long it is. Which is I think it is too long, but it is also brilliant.
Can a Martin Scorsese film be too long?
Yes. The Irishman, it was so long. It was ridiculous.
Wolf of Wall Street?
No, that was okay, I think.
That's probably longer than Killers of the
Well,
Flower
it didn't feel
Moon.
like it.
Yeah, pacing. Maybe it's pacing is the problem.
Well, this is the whole point, I guess, because, am I just a victim of social media and the TikTok generation? Or is this like an actual, is it self-indulgent to have a film that is 206 minutes long? In the cinema, do we need an intermission because of weak bladder issues, potentially?
Well, it's interesting because I am a person who suffers from those kinds of issues, and that's why I don't get drinks when I go to the cinema. But I was having a chat with someone who actually works in distribution, who works in movie theatres, and don't blame them guys. They want to put in the intermissions. It's the filmmakers that are saying, no, you've got to watch this. Thelma Schoonmaker is going to be on my case if I put an intermission in the middle of this.
She's been kicking off because apparently quite a few cinemas in the States have been screening the film with an intermission, and she's been like, I'm going to come after you kind of thing. Cause,
you do not want Thelma Schoonmaker on your case.
Exactly. Because there's certain films like The Hateful Eight, Tarantino, that was designed with an intermission in mind, but obviously this film has been designed to watch it in one sitting. So it's obviously somewhat disrespectful to the filmmakers to just arbitrarily put in an intermission at some point. But in general, like I personally think they should bring intermissions back as a thing, because I think it would be good for cinemas in general, because it's an opportunity for them to make more money. It's good for it's good for audience members because they can have a wee. They don't have to.
How is your bladder, Paul?
It's well, I'm the same as Nadine in that I try not to drink anything beforehand.
Well, it's funny because I went to see a DMP screening, Mario Bava double bill. And there was an intermission in that, and I never buy snacks because why would you? They're so blimmin' expensive. Mm-hmm. But in between films, I was like, you know what? I fancy some Maltesers. I fancy some chocolate. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stretch my legs. So I think the theatres would appreciate it. I think the viewers would appreciate it. So I think these auteurs need to, have a rethink and, put a break in their films.
Yeah, I've got a statistic, if you don't mind.
Oh, go on. We love a statistic.
I know. Well, apparently View, the cinema, did a market analysis, and it was 74% of people within that market analysis preferred the intermission for that film. Right. There you go. There's a statistic.
That makes
Martin.
sense. Yeah, Martin. Because he's
Marty.
I think Rory, you might have found this same quote from Scorsese's interview with the Hindustan Times. But he says, people say it's 3 hours, but come on, you can sit in front of the TV and watch something for 5 hours. Also, there are many people who watch theatre for 3.5 hours. There are real actors on stage. You can't get up and walk around. You give it that respect. Give cinema some respect. But I put it to you, Martin Scorsese, that most plays that are 3.5 hours long would have an interval, right?
Give my bladder some respect.
And my TV has a pause button.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I get what he's saying. But personally, with Killers of the Flower Moon, I didn't actually notice the runtime at all. I thought it flew by, but I think that might have been because I fell asleep a couple of times. But no, I didn't fall asleep. But I may have had a couple of micro naps. I don't know. There were definitely some moments where I was kind of aware that I'd maybe kind of drifted out of consciousness for a brief moment, and I wasn't entirely sure how much time had passed in that.
Yeah. I had this amazing situation in Oppenheimer, which is obviously another very long film, and I did need to go to the loo. So I had to wait. I had to time it, like either after the bomb or before the bomb. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go before the bomb, and hopefully I don't miss it, because if I miss it, then that's ridiculous. So I went into the toilet, came back, and then you could see everyone in the cinema. And half the people were asleep.
Wow.
And it's because, it was partly, I think, because of the Oppenheimer Barbie hype, because they were thinking it was going to be this wicked, thriller, when it was really...
Yeah. It is astonishing how well that film did, considering what it is. It just,
But so many people were unconscious.
Yeah.
Well, it's Nolan. People come out for Nolan. He's another one, like Wes Anderson, that people will just... And Scorsese, to, a degree that people go, I'm going to go and watch that film.
Exactly. And to be honest, I find the fact that I drifted off a bit like a compliment to the film, because, I'm quite an anxiety-ridden individual. Like, I don't really sleep very easily. So the fact that I think I was just so soothed by seeing a proper film, properly made, that I was just so relaxed by that. Or maybe I'm just soothed by the systematic destruction of a bloodline. No, we'll cut that out. But the point is, it's a great film, isn't it?
A brilliant film. I gave it 5 out of 5 on my Letterboxd.
We have a Letterboxd.
Yes.
Brum Picture Show.
Please.
On Letterboxd. Please do give us a follow, and I'll be putting up all the films we've discussed today and some of the other films that we've been watching in our spare time.
Yeah, please do that. And of course, once again, if you have anything you want to say to us, email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Just briefly, I just want to mention that Talk to Me, the A24 horror film that has just appeared on Netflix, and that is probably one of my favourite horror films of recent times. And just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to that, because it is so effectively done. Like, it plays with all the familiar horror tropes. Like, it starts with hitting a kangaroo with a car, which reminds me of the 1978 Australian eco-horror Long Weekend, which starts in exactly the same way. And so many horror films start with running over an animal or thing.
I thought you were going to say kangaroo.
Or kangaroo. It's only those two that I remember it being a kangaroo. But it's just like, it's such a common feature. Like, that's one of the things I like about horror, though, is that they're always playing with a formula.
Get Out had a deer, didn't it?
Probably. But yeah, it's all about how they play with that formula and how it follows the same beats, but you just do it in a way that's interesting. And I thought Talk to Me follows kind of similar structure to Hereditary, in that it, there's a party with young people and something really shocking happens, and then it's about the kind of the fallout from all that, and the grief of parents, and the relationship between parents and the young teenagers and all that. And it just got the tone perfect for me, and it was really funny and naturalistic. Like, you believe in these teenagers, but it's also genuinely unsettling. So anyway, I just wanted to say, watch that. That's on Netflix. now we're going to go over to Nadine, who is going to talk about what's going on locally.
Thank you very much, Paul. Just want to give a quick roundup of local events happening, local cinema events. You are free, of course, to go to your local multiplex, but we want to shine a light on some of the more niche, some of the more smaller community cinemas and different sort of unusual events happening in and around Brum. At your independent cinemas as well. So first off, started on the 3rd of November, going all the way to the 12th of November is the Square Eyes TV Festival. I know this is a film show, but this is TV at the cinema. These will be at various locations, so Mockingbird Cinema, the Mac in Cannon Hill Park. There's loads on. I can't tell you all the things that are on. There's so many, but definite highlights for me include Erie, Indiana screening. Who remembers that? Spaced, and one of my all-time favourites, Peep Show. So definitely do check out their programme. Journey Film Club have a screening of Frida on the 7th of November at the Birmingham LGBT Centre. Overlap Social, who do some great animated short films, have a theme of Act Natural on the 10th of November. So there'll be all sorts of animated delights around that theme at Norton's in Digbeth. Friendly Neighbourhood Cinema. Oh, now this I really would love to go to. Army of Darkness on VHS, 11th of November at the Duke William. And I have to say this might be controversial, but I think Army of Darkness is my favourite Evil Dead movie.
Wow.
I think the only thing that I dislike about it, the only sort of fault it has, is that they didn't call it the Medieval Dead.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
They
on
missed a trick.
VHS, come on, how retro is that? I think I'm just a massive Xena fan, and I feel like Army of Darkness is the playbook. If you ever watched Hercules or Xena, you can see that they've totally stolen everything from that film. And, you know, Sam Raimi, I love Sam Raimi. He was a producer on those shows, so I think it's just cheesy, it's fun, it's silly, it's tongue-in-cheek. So if you get a chance to go and see that on VHS, I do recommend it. Screen B14 will be showing Asteroid City. Yes, that's why we've been waffling on about Wes Anderson all day. On the 16th of November, do book your tickets in advance. Our last screening sold out. Rory doesn't want to have to turn you away at the Cuban Embassy on the 16th of November. And lastly, on the 18th of November, Sturchley Cinema will be showing Marcel the Shell with Shoes On at Sturchley Baths. So that's a lovely little wholesome, heartwarming film there. Highly recommended. So do go and see that if you're around the Sturchley area.
Thanks very much, Nadine. So I guess that's probably all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for joining us on the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio. We'll be back next week. There's all sorts of things that we're going to be chatting about in the future. So yeah, make sure you follow us on our socials. We're on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. We're also presumably on other platforms.
Instagram and Facebook.
That's right. Screen B14. And email us with any thoughts, questions, feelings, you know.
Follow us on Letterboxd.
Email us
pictureshow@brumradio.com.
So it's goodbye from me, Paul.
Goodbye from me, Rory.
And goodbye from me, Nadine.
Thanks for listening, guys, to the Brum Picture Show.
Until next time.
Until next time.
You have been listening to The Brum Picture Show, a Screen B14 production for Brum Radio, with Paul Vernon, Nadine O'Mahony, and Rory Rawson. Tune in next time for more film fun, and don't forget to email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
That's the kind of stuff that Paul comes out with.
I saw it, I was like, I want to say it so
I'm really
bad.
disturbed by your swan stuff. What?
Oh, I didn't even get to tell the... No, I don't really have a graphic swan story.
Thank God, I was like, what's wrong with you?
I
What?
didn't get to tell my rat story.
Oh, no, I've got a rat phobia.
Just quickly, my rat story. There's where I used to live in a little bedsit. I just kept hearing these noises like every night, over a series of nights. And then one day I opened up my fridge to find that everything on the bottom shelf of my fridge had gone missing. And apparently some rats had organised themselves to eat a hole through the drainage hole at the back of my fridge and steal everything. These rats conducted a heist and they stole all my food. So I was quite impressed with them because they'd been clearly working on that for days.
Maybe they were chefs. Trying to make it real.
Thank you for traumatising me.
Maybe they were
I told you I was
professional chef.
phobic. I asked him, listeners, not to tell that story. I said, I don't want to know your graphic rat story, and he didn't listen. So.
No, that's not the graphic rat story.
Oh my
that's just that's the nice rat story.
I don't want to know. Please, honestly, I had to pause Hellraiser and have a hysterical breakdown. There's a very unpleasant rat scene in that. I had to hold my friend's arm. I'm not a touchy-feely person, so if you know me, that in itself is unusual.
Yeah.
But I don't want to know about rats. I just don't even want to think about rats.
That's fine. Well, I once accidentally ran one over with my bicycle, so that was the graphic one. So there you go. And a coda to the fridge story. I wound up making a cage for my fridge. I filled in the drainage hole with
for the rats.
No. I filled in the hole with polyfiller and polystyrene, and then created a cage for my fridge out of chicken wire. So that is my rat story, and I didn't have Rafe Fiennes to help me. Okay, that's it then. Bye.
What? You don't listen, do you, Paul? I said don't tell that story.
I enjoyed that.
Thank you for listening to this Brum Radio podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast app.